Hello. In this second video, I first must note that this second video is a bit different than you might have expected from remarks at the end of the first video. I will indeed start to sketch the Reformed Christian view of logic I deem best, but not in this video. In the second video, instead, I will do more about Paul's view of things, and in particular about how he actually works with reasoning and logic in his actual writings, actual inspired writings. Now, what I mean by the Reformed faith, I might as well be definite. First of all, the Reformed faith takes the Scriptures, the inspired Word of God, as foundational, and as a matter of church confession and post-biblical theological interpretation, takes such documents as the rather brief Westminster Shorter Catechism as summarizing the system of doctrine contained in the Holy Scriptures. Now, we saw in the first video that texts from Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 had a Pauline view of things that I did not find consistent with either Gordon Clark's or Cornelius Van Til's view of logic. To sketch, and this is somewhat review, Paul's view from his actual writings. Now, if the Reformed faith is not true, then certain consequences would be true, and I would add known to be true. I will bring up further evidences from Paul's writings that this is in fact Paul's view. My first text I wish to allude to is Philippians 3:6. Let's see this one here. You can read the whole chapter, of course, but Paul says concerning himself in verse 6, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. Now, consider this as a proposition, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. Now, that in itself is a false statement. Paul was certainly in need of redemption before he became converted to Christ. And from the point of view of God's eternal, holy, moral law, he certainly deserved not to be regarded as blameless, but as a condemned sinner before the grace of Christ came to him. But you see, this is true, this proposition is true, if a certain false theory is granted inconsistent with the Reformed faith, namely the Pharisee theory. The Pharisee theory was that righteousness was only externals. It did not concern internal thoughts and attitudes at all. So on this false theory, what Paul says here does follow, would be true, touching the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. So this, again, is what I've been getting at, that Paul is quite willing to assume, for the sake of argument, the falsity of the Reformed faith, the biblical view as opposed to false views, and finds that certain things would be true, would be known, rather than a skepticism or logic not existing or something like that. Next, we turn to a text in Galatians, and I could probably find even more than this. I refer to the last verse in Galatians chapter 2. I do not frustrate the grace of God, for if righteousness come by the law, then Christ is dead in vain. If you grant this false theory, that righteousness come by the law, and thus you grant the falsity of the Reformed faith, then what follows is not universal skepticism or the non-existence of logic or anything of the sort, but rather certain other false propositions would follow, such as the inefficacy of Christ's death. Christ is dead in vain. Just doing justice to Paul's own view, in these three texts I've brought up, 1 Corinthians 15, Galatians 2, Galatians 3, Paul himself reasoned neither as a Van Tillian nor as a Clarkian would. And I would gladly interact with informed comments from people who are more learned than I in theology and in studies concerning the systems of these men, but I have to publish the way things appear to me at this point. And then there will be more in this series of a critical review of alternatives in Christian philosophy. Till next time.